All right, now we're live. Well, hey, first of all, it's Kip Teitsort, but it's enough about me for the moment. I want to introduce Dustin Hazelett, and I'm going to kind of preface this little discussion that we're going to have by talking about the first time that I had met him. Now, so I go to teach at a location, and while I'm there, as most of you have heard me say around the country, everywhere I go, there's always someone in the room that's a martial artist. And unfortunately, those who don't know much about MMA immediately call anything MMA immediately UFC. And so what will happen is you may find a guy who trains at a local gym around the corner, and he's been training for like 2 weeks, and immediately someone who is unfamiliar with the terms or the levels of MMA will go, oh yeah, so-and-so is a UFC fighter. And well, anyway, so flash forward. Turns out that in the class is Paramedic Dustin Hazelett, who it was in fact a professional fighter. But before I even say too much about that and let him introduce himself, and we'll talk about those things, many of you have already been made aware that I do things that I may regret after the fact. And one of those was when I found out what a great guy Dustin really was. I asked him during the class. I was like, "Hey man, would you mind throwing a couple knees into the bag just so I can feel?" Now listen, I've trained with a lot of people. I've been needing, by a lot of people in a bag, that is, in the kick shields or whatever. And so Dustin, obliges, and I'll be honest. The story I tell around the country is, it's like, man, when he hit me with that very first knee, he displaced my ovaries, and it was quite an interesting thing, because I'll be honest, it was at that moment that my brain went, no wonder I was never a pro fighter. That was just, it is what it is. But I'm so thankful that you came on, Dustin, and if you would just take a couple minutes and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you find yourself in EMS now.
My name's Dustin Hazelett. Like Kip said, I'm a retired MMA fighter. I was a professional for many years. I fought for the UFC for about 4 years towards the end of my career. After I retired, I decided to get into EMS. I had found out that I am not cut out for a normal job. I need the adrenaline rush, and I've always loved the medical field, so it seemed like a great match, and so I've been working in EMS for about 6 years now. Got into it straight when I retired, and I've been a paramedic for about 3 years.
So you've been a medic for about 3 years now? Is that where you're at now?
Yeah.
And then it's an interesting thing, because we do have several places we've been in, different locations around the country, where people have either drifted with, whether it be fire and MMA, or even some nurses that have done MMA and things like that. But it was I guess that you are probably that proof that I try to talk about around the country, meaning that you are like several of the others that I have met, that when I say that there are really skilled, highly trained, there's no doubt about who they are, meaning skilled and tough people. But yet it's like, number one, you don't go around acting like you are. It's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, dude, you're like a classy guy. I mean, you were like super humble, super willing to help with, anything and everything in the class. I don't know, something I didn't mention a moment ago was that something that stood out to me within the first few minutes of it dawning on me that you were, a professional UFC fighter at one time, was how you bragged on everyone else. It wasn't like, not one time did you talk about how you won this or won that. As a matter of fact, you would speak of the caliber of the people who had beaten you at one time or another. And to me, that was like the most non-alpha male thing that I think I'd ever heard in my life, was that here was a person who bragged on the people that beat him, rather than highlighting all of your wins, which, by the way, you've got some pretty neat highlight reels out there. But that just, it does. It speaks volumes about who you are as a person. So I wanted the world to know that you're just a hell of a guy. So not only are you a paramedic and a well-respected one at that, but you're overall just a good man. But when you heard that we were coming to town, and I don't know what all you knew maybe beforehand or what your expectations were, but what did you kind of think was going to be the DT4EMS Eve class whenever we first got there?
Well, they had approached me about taking the class. They wanted to get a couple people from each shift certified to teach, and they had approached me about it. Or well, actually, I don't think they approached me about it. They mentioned they were going to do it, and I pretty much begged them to let me do it. You know, because I love teaching martial arts. I've been teaching since I was a teenager, you know, and getting ready to turn 31 tomorrow. So I've been in it quite a while, but you know, I pretty much begged to get in there, and because I've always had people ever since I got an EMS. Everybody always approaches me. Well, what do you do when somebody does this? You know, and I'm like, oh, well, that's easy. I do this. And they're like, okay, well, why do you do that? And I'm like, well, you do this because of this and this and this and this. And if they do this, then you have to do this. And I get this like really, they get this really puzzled look on their face. And I kept thinking like, man, there's got to be a way to like simplify all this because, you know, the level I was competing at, everybody was highly trained and everything. And it's a whole different ball game. You know, it's like teaching it's just so much different when you're talking about competitive martial arts versus street fights and defensive tactics. You know, if you're talking about actually defending yourself and escaping a situation, it's much different than trying to actively fight someone and engage in a fight. And so I was really looking forward to it because of that. But to be honest, I didn't have the highest of hopes because of how the other classes, a lot of the other classes are. They're like, no, stop. Don't touch me. You know, like it's just so much of them are of what I've seen. A lot of them are, you know, they're pretty useless. I'm going to have to say. So I looked up your class. I couldn't find a whole lot of like the videos of the actual skills and stuff like that. But, you know, when I found out your background, I had a little higher hopes, but I still don't like to get my hopes up too high. You know, I like to stay kind of reserved until I see what's going on. But, you know, as soon as the class actually started and you asked me to punch you in the face, I really, you know, I was like, okay, this guy's legit, you know.
Oh, you know what? I cannot believe that's right. That was you. And I actually, it's too funny that you brought that up because now whether or not you recall it, but man, you are incredibly lightning fast. And because remember at this moment, I had no idea that you were actually the level of UFC, right? So normally what I get to do to get people to buy in is the whole punch me in the face thing. But
Yeah.
dude, you're just so fast and stuff. And literally, if everything wouldn't have been perfect on that, because you're skimming it here and inside. I mean, I'm like, I peed a little. I just didn't tell everybody that. But around the country, I tell people, I'm like, well, you have no idea, man. Please don't practice unless you're really good, because this is what happened when I asked this guy. And it was like, but the point was, in a self-defense arena, that would be considered a win because it had nothing to do with being able to ever, you know, beat you up. Speaking of that, my brain dropped to the point to where I don't remember what day it was, but you honored me with a few minutes of free rolling, and the class. When we were done, was all like, "Oh my gosh, you guys look like two coiled snakes." And I'm like, "Yeah, wait a minute here. It's you got to understand. He was flowing from I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead. You know, the entire time, but being kind enough to release me at that moment when I knew I was caught, and you knew I was caught. But that is and when you talk about the caliber of things like that and levels of skill, years in training don't always mean the same thing of where you've trained those years in training. And yeah. I will assure you that, your skill was very humbling, for a guy like me when I felt it. And not only just was the knee strike one thing, but my God, your jiu-jitsu was, you were just different. I had never rolled with anybody that rolls the way you do. You were literally, when I say light, it was like you were light, and all of a sudden, boom, I was caught. And it was like light. Like I couldn't track you. You know what I mean? And if I had to equate it to any other style of martial art that wasn't the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side, but if I had to equate it in my mind, it would be like the Filipino martial arts of the stick and knife work. They're soft until you go to cut them, or, because too much energy reveals where you're at, reveals what you're doing. But, that in itself was just man, I was honored beyond belief. So I forgot it was you that I had or to bring that up earlier, but I didn't even realize that you had remembered that, and I did mention like, but hey, thank God it worked, because it would have really sucked for you to knock me out cold and everyone, and they'd have been like, well, this class sucks, so let's go home.
Yeah.
But you did make a mention about winning, the difference between winning a fight and winning in self-defense. And would you agree that there's a difference between winning a fight versus winning in self-defense?
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference, and it's like I tell everybody, even before I took your class, which that was one thing I really liked about your class was the in-class portion, not just the hands-on, and the legal backing for, not treating people that are threatening you and stuff. Because I had been doing it, but I was always kind of worried in the back of my mind that I might get in trouble for, letting an intoxicated patient walk off scene or something. But, a win in self-defense is not getting hurt or not getting killed, whereas a win in a fight is, getting your hand raised. And a street fight versus a competitive martial arts are two different things. And, trying to defend yourself versus trying to win a street fight are two completely different things. Anytime you evade a dangerous situation, that's a win
Absolutely
in self-defense. And it's that was one of the things I liked about your course was all the moves were designed to not continue the engagement and to break distance and escape. And that's really important, because if you can just get a couple seconds to get away and you're actually able to get away or turn your opponent so that you can get away, it makes a huge difference versus staying in and engaging them. If you get engaged with them, then you're stuck, and you're going to be stuck until help arrives.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Here you are, this. You are a ranked fighter, and I will tell you, hit me harder with one knee than I've ever felt by any other person. Not to say that there's people that can't knee harder, but I've never been hit by them, and I would hope to never be so. Your jiu-jitsu made me feel as if I should be in diapers, because I was like, I didn't know what I'm like, oh my gosh, now what, right? But the point is that you're going, wait a minute, but here you are, this skilled fighter. Why aren't you taking care of them combative patients and torquing them down and wrestling, and doing those things? I mean, you know what I mean? See, people wrestle with that. They're like, wait a minute, why can't I? And I should, and I'll just manhandle them. But wait, you could manhandle them, but then why are you going? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, why do you think paramedics, EMTs, and nurses have to scratch their head and go, man, I'm going to get in trouble if I let this person walk away, knowing that it's dangerous? I mean, have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, it's a lack of education, and I was the same way before I took your class. Like I said, I even told the story in your class. I'd had a couple run-ins with violent people that were being very combative and stuff, and non-cooperative. And one guy, he was cursing at us and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, we're not going to try to make you go. If you don't want to go, you can just walk off. I'm not going to stop you. And he just walked off, and I told dispatch, hey, tell the police he's walking this way. And I tell people all the, I got into the medical field to help people.
That's correct.
If you want to be a fighter, go be a fighter. You want to fight people, go fight people. Do it competitively where it's legal, and safer. It's safe is a relative term in that sense, but safer. But I don't get. I've told people, I've told cops, like, I don't get paid to fight people. I don't do that. I'm here to help people. I had a drunk patient that was, PD had called because he was very intoxicated. He'd been combative with them, and he was, one dangerous situation we run into. I don't know how much you ran into it. When the cops are there, they're either completely calm or acting unresponsive, and then as soon as the cops shut the door of the ambulance, they're up. And now they're full of piss and vinegar. But this guy, he did that. He was, wouldn't say a word when the cops were there. It was like, we had to like drag him to the cot, and, the cops shut the door, and he opens his eyes and looks at me. He's like, he cursed, but to paraphrase greatly, that he said he could beat me up. I was like, look, man, I'm just here to help. I don't get paid to fight people. He was like, you want to fight people? I'll let you go. You can step right out there and fight those cops again, but I don't think it's going to go any better for you than it did the last time. Or we can sit here, crack some jokes, and have a nice, fun ride to the hospital. It's like, if you want to fight, you can go fight them. I'm not fighting you. And he smiled, looked at me. He's like, I like you. And then we had a fine ride to the hospital. Stark contrast. I had a very similar one where the guy, ended up actually assaulting my partner and I, getting ready to go to court over that one. But, the drunk people, like you said in the course, you can't trust them, but, a lot of those situations, some of them are completely unavoidable, and that's when you have to use the skills. But a lot of them, like that one, was very easily avoided just by by talking to them and just, hey, I'm not here to fight people.
Well, and I think you bring up a really valid point on that, and I will also say that it had also to do with you as a person, but then the more trained that you are, the less. Let me ask you, versus saying it, would you agree that the more skilled a person becomes, the less they ever use that skill in self-defense on the street?
It depends largely on the person. Most people, like 9 out of 10 times, the more skilled they get, the less likely they are to use it on the street. A lot of times if somebody has a chip on their shoulder or whatever, they go to the gym, they work that out, in the competitions and stuff, and then just sparring and rolling in the gym. The most dangerous people are the people that have a little knowledge.
Right.
They've got a little bit of training. They went to a couple classes, they've watched the UFC or MMA or whatever, and that's the people that are really dangerous. And there's an increasing number of those people on the streets. There's MMA is really popular now. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Thai boxing, it's all getting more and more popular. So you've got a lot of people with a little bit of training, and that little bit of training is far more than most healthcare providers have. And a drunk person that has a little bit of training is going to be dangerous to police officers. They're going to be very dangerous to EMS and hospital workers because you're completely ill-equipped to handle that.
And when what's interesting, and I do want to throw this out there too, because you brought up the point of saying, hey, I don't get paid to fight. Obviously anymore, that type of thing, because you chose to, help society, help community, be a paramedic. I mean, it's and I can't thank you enough for that. And I'm sure the public and your peers can't thank you enough just for the desire, knowing what your background was, because you could have been just about anything in the world that you wanted. You proved that. I mean, you're that 1% that goes, whatever it is, I charge for it, and I'm not going to stop until I achieve my goal. But I will tell you that another thing that I've said in classes around the country, whenever you get that, again, usually a person with a little knowledge and even less experience and even less street savvy, and they have a false sense of their security because they have, with a couple of friends, have been able to hold down the little old intoxicated man who couldn't attack them or assault them anyway. So therefore, they think that they can do more than what they can. But what I'm getting at is there was a moment when you were doing presentations, and I don't know if you recall this the same way that I do, but as you were doing your part during the trainer program, I'm back there typing a note because I thought, oh man, with mental prep, he's going to have this, and with the attitude. So I type it, and literally I'd have to go backspace, delete, because you would hit it every time. But then you said something that I was not expecting that literally was like a ripple of emotion across the room, and it even made me quiver in the back because of the way that you had said it. It was brilliant, and what you had done was, well, you were trying to tell them about, mental prep, and there's more to it than just skill and the things on it. But you kind of alluded to what you had just said a moment ago, which was, look, guys, I'm not a fighter. And you go, but neither are you. And when you said it like that, I was like, yeah, you're right. It was just a thing that, you know what I mean? When you call someone on the carpet like that, and you did it in such a way that was, it was honorable, but it was educational, but also it was sure as shit factual. I mean, there is no kidding. I mean, doesn't matter who you are, when a guy who, could stomp a mud hole in your behind says, look, guys, on the job here, I'm not a fighter, but neither are you. That's a reality moment that a person has to go, yeah, that's right. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I'd forgotten it until you brought it up the other day when we were talking. But yeah, I remember it now. And I've even told that to cops before. They've been like, "Oh, well, you can handle him." Like, "Oh, I don't get paid for that. That's your job." You take him down, and then I'll take him to the hospital. Like, I don't do that. I don't physically restrain patients unless I absolutely have to. If there's a cop there, like, okay, you guys there you go. This is all you, you know?
Because there's more to it. I mean, I'm sure, because you stay up on a lot of stuff, that you've seen some of the providers, already getting in trouble for some of the things they're doing. And, we're being lumped in with law enforcement with several of these, bad situations, which, of course, we love our brothers in law enforcement. There's no doubt about that. I'll always bleed blue. I mean, I spent 17 years as a cop. I will always bleed blue. But in EMS, I'm not supposed to be a cop. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between the two. But if you were there some important takeaways, even a guy with skill? So if you took your skill out of it for a minute and just kind of backed up and looked at the things that we were teaching those end users, do you think it made sense? Did you see them did it make sense to the people in the room? Because first of all, if you're educated, you're skilled, you're trained, you're experienced, and to you, you're like, hey, well, wait a minute, this makes sense. Do you think it was making sense to them as well? And, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it all made sense. I really liked the techniques you went over, and the way you approached it. I think was really good. And like I'd said, I really liked how all the techniques were about breaking the distance and getting away and really pushing that an escape is a win in a self-defense situation. A lot of times you get these, self-defense classes, and it's all about groin kicks and eye gouging and stuff like that. And, as you pointed out in the class, that's not always appropriate because it could be, a diabetic issue or something. And, I thought the techniques, they were all good. They made a lot of sense. And I think they're very helpful. I think that this kind of stuff really needs to be part of the curriculum for EMT class or medic class. I think it's downright negligible that because I mean, even in the short time that I've been in EMS, it's gotten a lot more dangerous, and it seems like all the time it's just getting more and more dangerous. And, I think it's getting to the point where it's going to be negligible to send, healthcare providers into people's homes and into these scenes with no training.
Right.
Like you brought up in the class, we get, the only restraint training we get in class is, okay, well, you put this loop here and this goes around the wrist and you tie this part to the cot and that's it, and sending providers in these kind of situations is it's dangerous, and I don't know how it is everywhere, but, I worked in a busy inner city department where we've had, just crazy amounts of overdoses and assaults and stuff. I think our busiest time was 26 overdoses in a 4-hour period. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had some, because it even made several of the EMS trade magazines and stuff that it came out. I was like, holy crap, that's what, friends over there and they're getting it handed to them,
Yeah. But the people that are overdosing and stuff, they're getting smarter, and their friends are getting smarter because they don't want law enforcement there, obviously. So they're calling them in as seizures, cardiac arrest, or diabetic issues. And, they're calling them in as these other things. And so we're going in, no law enforcement, and so we go in and it's an overdose and there's drugs and there's dangerous people. And, it's just, there needs to be more training,
Well, and, to be honest with you, which is something I've done ever since we first met, but, you're a voice for change. And I think when we had some conversations that were just between you and I, when there wasn't a bunch of people around, I was trying to, talk to you about several different things. And again, it's because of who I felt you are as a person. And I will tell you that, anybody that is looking to train on a regular basis, I would give, about anything to be able to be that student knocking on your door on a regular, basis. I'm ready to roll, man. Please choke me out here, But the truth is that, there's a reason why you got into MMA. There's a reason why you became a medic. And I'm absolutely certain there is a reason that our paths crossed. But I will say I'm thankful as heck I didn't get knocked out cold.
Me too.
That would have been bad, man. But I guess then it did not prove the validity, of the particular skill we're talking about with the self-defense. Because here's the thing: if I lined up and squared off with you like a fighter, and it was going to be a fight, there's no way I would stand a chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, in self-defense, the real world of self-defense is one moment in time. We're trying to give a person one moment here, and it's there. It's like you said, man, they start going, well, then what happens? And then what happens? Here's the thing, man, you can't. Would you not agree that in all of your, whether you want to call it on the sports side when you're in, you know, just rolling in the gym at the end of class, or if you were actually in, you know, a sanctioned event, that nothing is 100%. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, one thing goes one way, then all of a sudden, because of your training experience, you may have to switch and shift and use something completely different. And, you know, that's what self-defense is really trying to go, look, guys, the only thing we can share with you is one moment in time. But if you're not training, doing something, you know, I mean, you know,
Yeah. And
you're really asking for trouble.
I really like that you brought that up in the class. I don't know if other instructors are doing it, but I know you brought it up multiple times in the class. You mentioned, you know, that everybody needs to keep training and, you know, find a gym, find a style they like, and continue training. Because like you said, nothing's 100%. That's why there's, like, you know, an absurd amount of variations of a simple arm bar from guard, you know, because one arm bar doesn't work all the time. If it did, there'd only be one, you know? And, you know, there's so many variables to any time you get into a physical confrontation. There is just so many variables that you can't cover it in any class. You know, you spend, like, even me, I've been doing martial arts since I was 14, you know, and like I said, I turned 31 tomorrow. That's a long time in martial arts. I don't know everything. I still learn stuff. You know, I still run into situations where I gotta wing it, because there's not like a cookie cutter mold for this kind of stuff. And I also want to touch on, you know, when even if somebody does already do like my style, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or mixed martial arts, I still think taking your class would be important, because I personally, when I'm on the job, I don't do things like I would in a fight. I don't do things like I would, you know, in the gym or anything like that, because it's a whole different ballgame. You know, it's not like, you know, escaping is winning, you know, because I don't want to get engaged in a fight, you know, because even myself, you know, I was ranked at the height of my career, I was ranked number 10 in the world at welterweight. I don't want to engage in a fight with anybody, because anything can go wrong. I could trip and blow out my knee.
That's right.
You know, maybe they've just got God-given heavy hands and they can put me to sleep with one punch. You know, it happens. No matter how good you are at parrying or how good you are at blocking, shots still slip through. You know, and on top of that, even if I could easily take it, like somebody, like, let's say, for example, a drunk person or an overdose gets combative, and I start to grapple with them. Well, they've probably got, you know, if they're an overdose, there's a very good chance they've got uncapped syringes in their pockets. We find them all the time, which is why I never try to touch them or stick my hands in their pockets. I let the cops do it. You know, I don't do that, because I don't want to get stuck. Even if I can take them, you know, I might get stuck, and, you know, then I've got hepatitis, which is not a win, you know, in any sense. Or, you know, you've got blood and bodily fluids, and you know, like that last assault I had, the guy had blood and vomit everywhere, and, you know, it got all over me and my partner. Neither of us, you know, actually got hit, or thankfully neither of us got any of it in our eyes or mouth or anything like that. But, you know, that's a significant threat for a deadly disease, you know, because especially with the infection rate of IV drug users, hepatitis, it's an epidemic, you know. So if I engage in a grappling match with, you know, somebody that has hepatitis, there's a good chance I'm going to get hepatitis, and I don't want that. I would much rather, you know, carry their hand away, push them, and, you know, head back to the truck and leave the scene and let the cops in, you know, let them handle it in their way, you know.
Well, because doesn't it? Yeah, because, I mean, you know, sticking with that same theme, it would be, you know, not only ludicrous, but, you know, why then would we compel? So let's change the gears for a half a second and go, okay, well, here we go. You know, here you could do all this physically, but so then what should we be doing with that 5'2", 125-pound female medic? Should we compel her to hold on to someone that can hurt her just because you can? And I mean, but isn't that like how it kind of plays out? Is that they go, well, you know, and then there's the compelling, but that, you know, that these people do something that they have zero training for, and yet we're trying to say, and just as you're saying right now, I'm going, look, just because you possess the skill, maybe now's not the time to do it, because it's easy enough to back away and go, hold on, guys, that part isn't what we're supposed to be doing here. It's just like you said. I'm
Yeah.
here to help. I didn't come here to fight with anyone. And there's this, false belief that medical professionals are trained on what to do with that. And the truth is they're not. And just because, you've got well, first of all, an unbelievable amount of skill, yet because you have the skill, you have the critical thinking ability to go, now's not the time I'm going to use that. You know what I mean? It's just,
it's kind of, it's good that you bring that up. It's not funny, but if it wasn't such a serious situation, it would be kind of comical. I got a new partner probably about 2 or 3 months ago. He's a black belt in Wajutsu. So, I'm a 2nd degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and trained, countless other martial arts. He's a black belt in the martial arts. And so we'll be sitting in the truck, we'll be like going to a call or something. Another unit will get dispatched to a scene that's dangerous. And they should know, from the dispatch, it sounds dangerous. Suicide threats, might threaten to shoot themselves or an assault or something like that. And PD won't be on scene, and they'll mark en route and be like, don't do it. We look at each other, they shouldn't do it. Don't do it. Come on, don't do it. Don't do it. Unit such and such on scene. Don, why are you doing that? Come on. And here we are, both black belts in martial arts, both, very capable of handling violent situations if we have to.
That ain't
and
for
we're
us.
sitting there, the voice of reason going, don't go on scene. Don't go on scene. Don't go. They went on scene. Why did they go on scene? Why would you do that? And I try to talk to people all the time, and they're just like, well, it seemed like it was all right. Or, well, PD, they were going to be a while. And we figured, we'd just give it a shot. Like, don't do that.
And so
Don't do that.
would you not agree, though, we could take them back to EMT or medic school and go, wait a minute, weren't you told that if I couldn't cover that scene with my thumb on a hazmat scene, I don't have to go in there? Or if it was a flash flood, I don't have to go in there. If the building is on fire and it's so hot that the fire safety guy pulls all the firemen out and we're going, wait a minute, but you're the fire guys, you got the fire trucks and the hoses, why aren't you doing that? Their answer is all the same, because it's not safe for me. But yet let it come to violence and we just go, okay, we'll go in there and just assume everything's okay, And man, I don't know. Like I said, I think you're a brilliant guy. I think you've got the amazing message. Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you.
I think it is. It was so happy for you guys, and please keep sharing the awesome pictures of your family, including your daughter, which was one of those. That was the first thing. Look, and I can't hide the goosebumps or whatever, because when I think about it, and I first started to kind of research you at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, and that's the first thing that really pops up is that, you with your daughter, and that's important to me. I mean, anybody that knows me knows that my family is what's very important to me as well. Well, do you have any advice? Let's say there's somebody that's watched this now, or they're considering, training their staff, or they're even considering training themselves, but they're looking at several different, programs. Is there anything that you might say that, as to why you would or would not recommend what we're doing here, or, just any of your thoughts on that might help get them off the fence?
Yeah. I would highly recommend your course over the other ones. Like I said, I personally, I enjoyed the classroom part a lot. There was a lot of really good information in there. And I think you did a great job in not bogging it down, like we've all had to set through the alphabet classes 15 times, how they get. And your class wasn't like that. You kept it moving, you kept it light. I really liked how you staggered between active movement and classroom stuff, specifically geared at the medics, especially ones that may or may not have been coming off shift and not slept, so that you're up and down so you're not falling asleep. And the hands-on stuff, like I said, I thought was excellent. I thought the way that you approached it was really good as well, and just the overall message about, trying to change the culture and trying to avoid the fights in general. That's what I do. I really like that message. And, like, I think you even brought it up in the course, if you want to be a fighter, go be a fighter, but don't do that here. That's not what we do here. And that's what I try to tell people. And I think that, I think it was a great course, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. I think if you're in the healthcare field, especially EMS, your course, something like some sort of training like that is crucial. I think it's downright getting to the point where it's going to be negligent, especially in busy inner cities. if you really start following the assaults, like you guys post them on your blogs and stuff, you start following those assaults. I mean, it's getting to the point where, you know, it's too dangerous not to train your staff.
Yeah, because they certainly, well, and I guess I take it back to, they don't know what they don't know, you know, and so our people are making mistakes because they're just doing something that they felt was right at the moment, and then it gets captured on camera, or it goes bad, and then just, you know, worse things follow after that. But I will tell you that, you know, I hope you realize that you're one of those people that you really, and whether you were ever, you could have been no professional fighter ever, but you still left a very heavy impression on my heart just with the way you were as a person. There was everything about it. And then when you were as skilled as you are, and then absolutely as humble, which again, the ones that are like you that I've met, there haven't been a ton of those, but every one of them that I've met that I know, the moment we touch, that they are as legit could be, are absolutely like some of the best people to have in class, because they get the message. They start going, man, why aren't you guys listening to this? Because of exactly what he's saying. You know, if you want to train regularly and go compete, come practice with us, you know. But we're just trying to be very mission specific. But I will tell you, man, that I brag on you all the time, that and it's always about you as a person. And I wish that we could get more people in a role, whether it be, you know, a supervisory, a leadership, whatever type of role, because I really think that you get it. And of course, violence is, you know, our subject that we're discussing. But, you know, there's this way that you, you know, without making it sound odd, it's just that you have the ability to get people to trust you, to listen to you. And I think, well, I don't think, I know it's because of, you know, your background and why you got into the MMA, and then your journey all through that. And that's what I'm sure has led you to be who you are, you know, now. Because it's like, you don't have to walk around as a tough guy trying to make people believe you're a tough guy, hiding behind some badge or a fake wall, because, you know, anyone that's paying any attention, just takes them a couple of seconds to go, you know, that's probably not one fella I'll mess with. Let me go pick on this guy, you know. And it goes back to the human animal. But I won't take any more of your time. And to be honest with you, I don't know where there's nothing I really need to edit in this. I mean, it is like absolutely, you know, you made me sound better. How's that?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So it sounded like an idiot. I normally feel like I do on these things. But listen, Dustin, man, thank you so much, first of all, for even taking the time to train with me to begin with. You honored me in multiple ways, but you gave me stories that make it sound cool. Because again, nobody's ever need me enough to rearrange my ovaries. I will never forget that. So anything you ever need, man, I'm here. And do you have anything else? If not, we'll call it done.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, and thanks for coming and teaching us, you know, and spreading the message and trying to, you know, create change. You know, like I said, I think it's really important. You know, my wife's a medic also, and my daughter, who I'm vehemently trying to talk out of it, wants to work on an ambulance like her daddy when she grows up. No, let's get you into something else, you know. But, you know, I think that it's important to, you know, I think it's important to kind of create those kind of changes in EMS, because there's a lot of, I love EMS, you know, I love being a medic. There's a lot of stuff that needs changed about it. Violence is one of the things on the forefront that definitely needs addressed. And keep it viable.
Absolutely, because I think when we address, believe it or not, that one issue, it will filter into so many others. Because, you know, there's you know, if someone's attacked, it affects their, you know, job performance later. It affects how they see things and how they were treated after the assault. And of course, those are some of the things that we try to share later. You know, just like the girl that was stabbed 105 flipping times. Imagine how angry and upset I was to be in the very city it happened and teach 2 back-to-back classes and speak at a conference, and hardly anybody even knew that it happened on a Thanksgiving day, this past Thanksgiving, you know. And I'm like, and you want to know why I lose my mind, you know. But people like you are what really keep me going, man, because it's your validation of that the message what we're trying to say is you know, on the mark, really helps more than you know.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. I'll let you get back to your family. Thank you so much for letting me take up your time. And guys, check out Dustin Hazelett, McLovin himself.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks, Dustin.